Welcome back to another segment of the Takis Dairy Farm family, where we get an update about their red barn. So if you're just joining us for the first time, Takis has completely painted their barn red. They've got 2 A5 milking robots, 3 Discovery collectors, and then the 1 Vector automated feeding system. And last week we got this great walking barn tour delivered to us from Josie. But today, another family member, Tyler, is going to join us. Tyler's the feeding man at the farm. That's his specialty. Thanks, Tyler, for joining us. Tell us about your Vector system and feeding all these cows in this new automated barn.
The Vector is pretty neat. It's my first impressions were that it's very slow, but it's going 24/7, so it's putting more hours than I would put in. So it's doing a really good job of keeping up. We've had to make a few tweaks with our feed ration just to help it mix up a little bit better. But each day it's a little bit better, and I'm learning more and more each day.
So how many groups of cows are you feeding, and are they getting the exact same ration?
Right now we're feeding 3 groups. We're hoping to add at least 1 more group, maybe 2, depending on what happens going forward. But the main milking group gets the most complex ration. And then there's the close-up cows. They get more of a 50-50 mix of baleage and corn silage with a little bit of mineral added in. And then there's a heifer barn that the Vector also goes. And there's about 60 head in there that feed a very similar ration to the close-up cows. So right now we're feeding about probably close to 200 cows right now with 3 different rations.
So then in your facility, you're working with a feed kitchen with a grabber arm that goes down into the feed types, picks it up, brings it back to the bowl, mixes it up. There's a scales up in that grabber arm. So what type?
Correct.
Okay, so what type of feeds are in your kitchen today?
So in the kitchen right now, we have two different types of baleage and corn silage. And then there's also commodity bins outside for our roasted and ground corn and beans. And then there's also the concentrate bins where we put our mineral mix. So those are all augered in with flex augers. But right now the feed grabber is just grabbing 3 different types of feed.
And how often are you filling the kitchen?
So that's something I've been playing around with. Right now, I think we could probably fill it every 4 to 5 days, but I've sort of been playing around with different spots for the feed to try to make it run a little more efficiently, because the baleage that we have, it's not the best at grabbing consistent amounts. I had that the furthest away, and I've been thinking about moving that a little closer so it doesn't have to travel and try multiple grabs to get the right amount each time. So if I move that closer, I think I can maybe help it keep up if we want to add more cows. So that's something I've been playing around with. But I think about 3 to 4 or 4 to 5 days is where we could get the kitchen stocked up, and it would last as long as we don't get a bunch of hot days in a row when it comes summertime.
So do you feel like you've freed up a tractor, or you're spending less time in a tractor?
Oh yeah, for sure. I was in a tractor every day before, and now, if we didn't have cows at another farm, I probably wouldn't be in the tractor, every 3rd day. But about every 3rd day, I jump in a tractor to get some feed for other cows at another location. But for the actual milk cows and every other cow that we have in the robot barn, I'm definitely in a tractor a lot less.
So for people who haven't seen a Vector or haven't watched any of our videos, what is your impression? How would you describe a Vector to somebody?
Well, I would tell them, there's so many components. With the feed kitchen, with the feed kitchen, the feed kitchen kind of reminds me of sort of a like a 3D printer. If anybody's ever seen a 3D printer, it's got like the gantry over top and it moves around on X and Y axes and can pick up different feed spots or spots of feed. And but as far as the actual MFR, the vector that goes out and dumps feed, it's basically just a big bowl on top of a skirt. The skirt pushes up the feed as it goes, and it goes out and dumps feed and measures the height of the feed, because you can set the height at different levels depending on the different pens. And so if it scans a low height, a lower height than what you set the feed at, it'll dump that feed and come back and mix up another batch feed for that same spot, or it'll scan another spot and work on that. And it just keeps up feed heights at different fences. And it's a lot less worry as far as like making sure the cows have feed in front of them. And, if something does go wrong, you do get a phone call from the system, the same system that like the milking robots use. And it'll tell you like if the MFR, the wagons or the feed wagon's been out of operation for more than whatever time you set. I think we have it at 45 minutes because it shouldn't be out on a route for more than 45 minutes. That's way too long. So I got one of those the other night. And then there's other phone calls you can get to, if something does go wrong, it'll give you a phone call to make sure that you can get on it right away and make sure it's operating correctly. So yeah, it's pretty neat to watch. It's kind of like I said, it's kind of slow. So if something does go wrong and you have to stand around to see what's making it go wrong, then you got to put in a lot of time. But once you figure that out, it frees up a lot of time, later schedule. So
Yeah, I understand what you mean by it's slow. I feel like I have a pretty fast-paced walk, and last week you can walk up and down past that thing like 3-4 times, and it's just still very, very somatically, consistently crawling and delivering that feed at just that correct right amount. So on farms today, we often talk about, well, go grab the TMR. That means go feed cows, right? And with the vector system, total mixed ration is a thing of the past. We don't really use that jargon. Help our listeners to understand what is the jargon that we use with the vector.
Right. So the old way, like you mentioned, was the TMR, the total mixed ration. That's more for there's other types of farms that use the vector system that aren't necessarily dairies, but with the milking robots that we have as well, we're putting feed at the robots. So we have to take that feed that we're feeding out of the robots out of their bunk feed, out of what we'd be mixing with the vector. And so that changes it to a PMR, which is a partial mixed ration. So we're not actually putting together everything that they need as far as nutritional value in the bunk or in the vector, because we want them to be motivated to go visit the milking robots. And so as far as the milking herd, I guess they're getting the PMR, but the close-up heifers and the other heifers, they're getting more of a total mixed ration as far as the vector goes. So I guess we're sort of doing both. I never thought of it that way before, but the actual cows that are milking, they're getting a TMR, and the other cows are getting more of a PMR still. So the vector can kind of do.
And I know something that's always been really important to your dad, to the whole family enterprise, is obviously keeping costs down, but also having a lot of controls in place and knowing where your food and feed stuffs are coming from, because you guys are really quite unique. Your milk goes direct to the consumer through your own creamery that you operate there in town, through the production of ice cream, milk, and the cheese curds. And so at that robot, are you feeding pellets, or are you feeding other ingredients that you grow right there on the farm?
Right, we're feeding everything that we feed at the robots. We've wanted to, like, since the start, we've wanted to have it be something that we make on the farm. And so any corn or beans that we get, we roast them and then we crack them through a roller mill, and that's what we feed. And it's been pretty good. It was a little bit of a slow start. Because most farms go to the pellet, some sort of pellet, and so there's a little bit of a worry there that maybe the cows weren't as motivated to come to the milkers, but each day it seems like we get one more. Every 3 days it seems like we get one more cow that'll go in on their own. So we've been pretty happy with the roasted corn and beans. And like I said, we've had meetings about maybe putting in some sort of molasses mechanism in there to squirt a little bit of molasses in there to give them a little bit of extra motivation to go to the robots. But as of right now, I think we're just going to stick with the corn and beans because, we grow it here and it's the most, it's the easiest for us to get right now. I mean, cost wise and other ways.
So any tips for folks out there considering a vector?
Any tips? Stock the kitchen before you go to bed. You don't want to get that phone call in the middle of the night. I'd say just be patient and don't be afraid to ask questions. I mean, we've had the group from Eastern Iowa Dairy do our install, and they've been really good about any questions that we have. If they don't know, they're always trying to find out for us through whatever revenues they have to figure out, if we're running any problems or if we have any ideas that we see, like, oh, it would be awesome if, as an example, the vector, when it goes around to push up feed, as the cows eat, they nose the feed out left and right to try to pick through the goodies. And so that's why you got to go around and keep feed pushed up. And so when they nose it past their feed alley, that vector, it doesn't exactly push the feed back and keep it in the correct fence. So it'll keep pushing it past it as the cows nose it out further. And so I think there's ways that we could maybe tweak that to maybe shorten the length of the feed bunk so it doesn't dump as far. And so it would keep that feed alley, because right now I just have to go down there with a shovel and kind of keep it back in their feed alley, which isn't a big deal. But there's just little things like that. Just be patient and don't be afraid to ask questions. That would be my biggest advice.
Awesome. Well, great tip and advice for everyone watching this. And thanks again for taking the time right here before Christmas. And since it is Christmas time here, I want to challenge you all that are watching this to 3 things. And for the first 3 Facebook users that drop a question down here in the comments, I will give you all some great new Lely gear to keep you warm this winter. But so how we're going to do this is the first person that drops a question specifically about the A5 will get something. The second person who drops a question about the Discovery Collector manure systems. And then the third person who drops a question about the vector will receive a piece of Lely gear. So we'll connect via direct message. But with those questions that you drop to us this week, next week, somebody from the Takas family will answer those questions for you about their personal experience with their Lely Red Barn. So Merry Christmas, everyone. Thanks again, Tyler, and let's have a great winter break.
Thanks for having me.